Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Baseball FM. As always, I am your host, Frank. I am doing a solo episode today. Max is taking some time off. He should be back soon, but I just wanted to make this episode as an ultimate guide of sorts to the 2026 MLB draft. I've been doing some work over the last week or so, just sort of putting together a spreadsheet on my own, sort of grading each pick, looking at each pick through a lens of a few different sources, fan graphs, ESPN with Kylie McDaniel, and MLB pipeline, of course, and synthesizing that a little bit, trying to figure out who I think had the best draft, who I think had the worst draft, and yeah, I figured I'd share that with everybody, and I'll try my best to keep it succinct, but obviously go into a decent amount of detail. I'll have all 30 teams in this video, talk about the first 10 rounds. Um, to be honest, after like 11th round through 20th round, probably juice ain't worth the squeeze. Working a full time job and commuting back and forth every which way, and he's probably. I mean, there honestly is probably about 20 or so names in those rounds that I find pretty intriguing. Some of those might not sign, and you know, yeah, I just think a lot of those I'm probably going to grade as chalk and move on with my life. So figured 1 through 10, that's going to be a good amount of value. That's where you're going to see a lot of names that we're going to see in the MLB in a number of years. Some probably as soon as back half of next year, even maybe. And yeah, without further ado, I will share that list with you now. If you can see this here, we have a spreadsheet essentially, and I've color coded it: green being A, being blue, C being yellow, D being orange, F being red. And as you can see, I've sort of done it sequentially in the order that the first pick was. So 1-1 is the White Sox, 1-2 Rays, etc., etc. And then on the left side here, we have the round and grade and my personal favorite pick from each draft. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the White Sox here. Obviously, Rock Chalosky being the 1-1 pick. Rock Chalosky, if you're the head of the MLB, I suppose. But no biggie, you've only had, I don't know, 12 months, 13 months of him being the presumed 1-1 in this draft, so whatever. But um, I see that most sources would have Rock Chalosky as the number one pick. I think the only dissenting one is MLB Pipeline. As you can see, they have them ranked second. I think that personally, with a lot of these guys, if you were the presumed number one overall pick for as long as Rock has been, they're going to look for holes in your profile. They're going to look for anything to knock you down. So, I think he's 1-1 for a reason. I think he's probably the most MLB ready of almost any of these guys, and exceedingly talented. If we look at his profile here with MLB Pipeline, they have him projected 60 hits, 60 power, 45 run, 60 field, 60 arm, 65 field, 65 overall. I mean, just numbers jumping off the page. 60, 60 hit power. That's an elite all-star level player if that comes to fruition. Looking at his UCLA stats, Big Ten, UCLA, pretty big college program. Same number of strikeouts and walks, 320 batting average, 420, 452 on base percentage, over 1,000 OPS, 21 homers, 60 RBIs. Not as good as his previous season, but still a very, very good season against some top level talent. Hit over 300 in all 3 years of his college career. 23 home runs, 21 home runs, 460. More walks than strikeouts. Again, I think this is just sort of an overthought here. great stats. Number one pick for a reason. I've been using this list from Battery Power. Really good source that I've used for a lot of this ranking. If you just want to look at this real quick, it's basically gathering a few different sources: Baseball America, Pipeline, Perfect Game, ESPN, Draft Simulator, all those kinds of things, and sort of aggregating it within the system. They had Rock, the consensus number one over Grady Emerson here. So great pick, gets an A as you can see. Um, yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's a great pick. I like that the White Sox didn't overthink this. Nothing that I can really fault them for there. So moving on, Landon Tome, someone that they used the 34th overall pick that they traded with the Brewers for, Pirates. They gave up Jacob Gonzalez and Brandon Eisert, I believe, for 34th overall pick here. Landon Tome, son of Jim Tome, obviously Baseball Hall of Famer. If you just a quick look at his stats here: 55 hit, 55 power, and 50 field. All around a very good player. Perfect Game has him as the 47th overall high school prospect. From what I've been able to see, he's someone who's very well polished. He's someone who I think has a solid amount of upside. The way I look at it, everything I've read indicates that he has some power to get to. Surprise, surprise. Only 18 years old, 6 foot, 177. Probably not going to have elite power like his dad, but his hit tool looks pretty projectable so far. White Sox obviously taking a very MLB ready prospect with the 1-1 pick, and Tome is someone that I think has some upside there. I think if you're looking at the combination of everything, they probably reached a little bit, but not so much that he probably would have been back around on their second round pick. So solid pick. I don't know necessarily if there's the upside of some of the guys they could have taken in this spot. I know you don't really want to draft for need, but White Sox, if nothing else, really need pitching. Probably could have done a few different things with that selection, but overall, I think it's a very solid one. Excuse me. Second round pick, Cole Prosek. MLB has him as very good value in that spot. Projected 27th, 60 hit player. He's someone that has done very well in the college ranks. I believe for. No, sorry, taken out of high school. I'm thinking of someone else. Prosek is someone that is the 10th rated high school player. Commitment to Mississippi, it's an SEC school. You don't get a commitment to an SEC school without having a really good amount of performance as a high schooler. 6'1", 195, probably can grow into that a little bit. He's a performer on the Perfect Game circuit, power with barrel skills, MVP of the AA Classic. There's a lot to like here. Graded higher than Tome. Great that he came back around for the White Sox in the second round. It's a little bit of a question here of where exactly he sticks in the field. He's listed as a third baseman / catcher, probably a third baseman at the moment. But if you can get the 10th ranked high school prospect in the second round, MLB Pipeline had him at 27, cumulative record at 36, getting him at pick 41, excellent value. I love that pick a lot. Definitely all greens from here. I'm going to speed up a little bit. I really like to get in depth with the first couple of rounds here, but I'm only going to talk about a couple more guys here. Joey Volchko, I've heard his name bandied around quite a bit. A lot of people look at him as a reliever. I think that you know, even if he is a reliever, he's going to be a damn good one. 60 grade fastball, 60 grade slider. As you can see, the splitter, curveball leave a little bit to be desired, but you know that's a lot to like in a potential reliever. 68th ranked at pick 77, 60th rank according to the cumulative look here, and I think above all, him being a performer in the SEC, um, 119 strikeouts, 95 and a third. Maybe the hits and walks are a little high there, 4.3 walk per nine. It's great, but he's limiting home runs, zero point 0.8 per nine, 11.2 strikeouts per nine. So I like him a lot as probably a back end reliever. Maybe a little less talented than Grant Taylor, but someone that I believe in as the next level closer for the White Sox. And they seem to have an eye for a guy that can fill in that role. So Volchko, if he can become a back end bullpen arm, should progress pretty quickly going up against SEC competition and doing very well there. So I think that's a great pick. Gets an A from me. One more guy that I wanted to talk about here in this position, Alex Weingartner. Now, this is someone that I saw a few different sources talk about. I saw Fangraphs, Eric Longerhagen, really liked him. And, it seems like one of those things that a lot of people might overlook with this draft. People look at MLB 166, pick 159, that's pretty much chalk. But he is seen as 135 in the cumulative rankings and number 75 in the overall high school ratings according to Perfect Game. Plays two-way, great arm. 425 home runs, 16 RBIs in Perfect Game play. Committed to Penn State, not a super massive baseball powerhouse, but one thing that I will say about him is he is, provided that there's some signability there, I think taking guys like Segura and Scolari, both fourth-year juniors out of university, probably won't go for a ton. You could say the same thing with Volchko as well. These three are probably going to be pretty solid value for what they are, allowing them to go deep for a high school senior committed to Penn State. I would say the biggest thing about him is, his power run combination, 50-60, 60 arm, 50 field. A lot of that is very rough given that he is 18 years old, obviously. But 6'2", 198, probably could grow into that a bit, change that 50 grade power into maybe a 55. If you have a 55, 60 in the 6th round, even if the hit tool is 45, I think that's great value. So he gets a green. Overall, I like the White Sox class a lot. A is the great grading that I give them, one of the best. Honestly, I can't really fault any of the picks that they made. None of them got bad grades. My only thing is, Segura and Scolari, sort of underwhelming college arms, but at the very least, I think they could probably get up to AAA and be some organizational depth there. So overall, A for the White Sox. Moving on to the Rays. Oh, of course, Rock Chalosky being my favorite pick. I think that's consensus 1-1. Didn't overthink it. I appreciate that. Moving on to the Rays, Grady Emerson. Obviously, he is someone who a lot of people were talking about at number 1 at times. And I think ultimately 2 is probably where he belongs, just considering the fact that Rock Chalosky's done it against much better competition. But, Fort Worth Christian, Texas high school baseball is nothing to sniff at. 6'3", 185, certainly room to grow in that at 18 years old. 60 field, 65 hit, 55 power, 55 run. I mean, just a very overall good to great profile according to MLB. Number 2 overall here, of course, with the massive group project here. Ultimately, I am a. Oh, for fuck's sake, man. Ultimately, I think that there's a lot to like about. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, apologies for that. Ultimately, how are we doing on time, actually? Ultimately, number 2 overall pick, very good. Gatorade National High School Player of the Year. My only thing is, me personally, I prefer college batters over high school. But obviously the upside is here with Emerson. Obviously, I believe his brother is Colt Emerson, and so there's a little bit of a family connection there. Number 1 high school player according to Perfect Game. I think Rays did a good job here, and there's nothing else to say about that really. Next pick I wanted to talk about here, Ben Blair. This is a guy that I am very curious about. He's sort of, I don't want to say he's a Rays-like pitcher, but he's someone that I think has a very well-rounded game. From what I've seen, from everything, he went to a small school at Liberty, so that's probably the only reason that he's going in the second round here. But Ben Blair, if you look at his stats here, Conference USA, not a powerhouse by any means, but he's done well there. This last season especially, 1.6 walks per 9, 10.8 Ks per 9, 94 innings pitched with 113 strikeouts, certainly nothing to sniff at, and a .8 home run per 9. Probably not facing the best competition, but he's done well 2 seasons in a row, back-to-back seasons of 10 plus strikeouts per 9, improving his walk rates there. 45th in terms of the collective group project, 58th according to MLB Pipeline, taken at pick 49. I think that's good value no matter how you slice it. This is a guy, 55 fastball, 50 slider, 55 cutter, 50 changeup. If his fastball and cutter are already looking at 55s, according to MLB, and the Rays are someone who are a big proponent of the, it's called a RAS pack, according to Nick Pollock on the pitcher list, but essentially the 3 fastball mix of fastball, cutter, sinker. If he's just working on the sinker and he can get all those to at least a 50 level, I'm seeing a very Rasmussen type of profile here. And secondaries, slider, changeup, both 50s, probably could work on that a little bit more. But if you can go through the Rays prospect pitcher pedigree, the stuff that they're doing with Brody Hopkins right now, and a few others, the 60 control is going to get him far, right? If you can locate those 3 fastballs, I don't see any reason why this guy can't be a stud in the next few years. Now, 4th-year junior, it's a toss-up when it comes to how he's going to perform, just having come from a smaller school. But if these grades are to be trusted and the rankings are to be trusted, I like this pick a lot. Easily my second favorite pick. 1B to Grady Emerson's 1A. It's just that Grady Emerson is obviously undeniable at that pick. But I want to talk about the last guy I want to talk about here for the Rays, Kyle Johnson. He is 6'1", 205, probably fully grown at 21, coming out of Virginia. Some very good competition there. That's certainly no lightweight conference when you're looking at it from that perspective. And a 6th round pick He is a two-way player at Virginia, but a lot of very interesting tools. Obviously, if we're looking at him as a pitcher, which we presumably are, 5.4 walks per nine, 10.7 strikeouts. This is ACC competition we're looking at here. If he's playing two-way, he's not getting the best of either side, but he is seemingly a very talented player. Control is something they really need to work on, but 55 changeup, 55 slider, those are some very good secondaries. That's something where you kind of need to tweak something that you really need to tweak the fastball. I believe that the Rays can instill in him the RAS pack, like I was saying before. Especially if he already has a fastball cutter, which seemingly are at the same level here. Probably needs to ditch that curveball if that's anything to be believed. But he is, according to basically everything I'm looking at, around 150, 154. Great value at that pick. A college arm as well. So he's presumably not going to be going over slot at that position. It's a talented arm. It really is. And, you can't knock the ERA too much if you're a two-way player at a college in the ACC like Virginia. So I'm interested to see what they can do with that, especially with the two secondaries graded so highly. So that's my overall thought on the Rays class. A- is the overall grade. They just don't have as many greens as the White Sox. That's really the only difference. Colin Bland, not a massive fan of this pick. I've heard his name talked about a little bit in the high school ranks. 58th high school player, 4th round, unranked by MLB, and 277 according to the group project. So, probably a little overvalued there at that pick. Probably could have gone in a different direction. He obviously could turn into an absolute beast and prove me wrong. Obviously, he batted 500, 8 home runs, 34 RBIs, and perfect gameplay in 2025. So, committed to Vanderbilt. Certainly could prove me wrong. I just think, based on what I can see, probably could have gone a different direction. But, very, very intriguing. Just not my personal pick of the litter. Twins next. We got Vaughn Lackey as the number 3 overall pick. And if we're being honest here, that was going to be the number 3. I mean, everything I've read, seen, listened to, podcasts and such, these were the presumptive top 3. Rock, Grady, Vaughn. And, the Twins didn't fuck it up. I think they set themselves up really, really well, taking him 3rd overall. And to be quite honest, there's nothing that is telling me that he's going to be worse than the other 2 that were taken ahead of him. The only thing he's lacking really is track record, if you want to call it that. But he's someone that is played 3 years now at an ACC school with Georgia Tech, a very good college program. A 347, 421, 500 slug with a 921 OPS in 2025 as a 19-year-old in college, by the way. 6 home runs, 18 stolen bases at catcher. This year, just absolutely going off. 397, 519, 772 for a 1291. 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, 78 RBI. More walks than strikeouts. I mean, he performed well. So well, in fact, he performed better than Rock Chalosky, who's obviously the presumptive number 1 pick. I think if you looked at Chalosky's 2025 season compared with his 2026, that's really the only difference, where he hit for power over 20 plus home runs in both, whereas Vaughn Lackey only did it in 1 season. But this is an incredible, incredible season for a 20-year-old in ACC play. I mean, doing that at such a young level, being a starter or at least getting significant playing time since he was a freshman at Georgia Tech. I mean, are you kidding me right now? 60-60 for the hit and power. I mean, 55 for the field. I think not a lot of people were talking about him prior to the season. Certainly up this high, but I like him a lot. Twins, I mean, honestly, the Twins must be very happy to get the number 3 pick in this, because I can't really remember a draft class being this deep at the top 3 since the Paul Skeens draft, if I'm honest, because there's something to like in all of these guys, and yeah, I mean, I could say a lot of things about Von Lackey, and I can't wait to see him play against Pro Ball here, and just to see what he can do. Next pick I want to talk about, Ethan Waxman. Someone that is maybe a little undervalued here by certain members of the I want to say baseball prospecting elite, I guess. Collectively grouped at 77. Pipeline has him at 87 at the 79th overall pick. Pretty much chalk in terms of that, but 55 fastball, 55 curveball, and the rest are a bit of a mystery. But 6'5", 225 as a high schooler is just preposterous. Committed to Wake Forest, obviously a great program. I love the projectability here. I think this is a guy that the Twins probably won't have to play with too much. 93rd overall in terms of the top 500 at perfect game. Not exceptional value, I think, in the 3rd round there, but you have to think about how this guy's going to develop, right? 6'5", 225. That's a lot of meat on the bone here. And 18 years old, I think this is just really a matter of honing that fastball, maybe giving it a little bit more life here, and then adding a 3rd breaker, really, and working on the control. You add a 3rd breaker, work on the control. This guy could be a big-bodied starter, and it's hard to say for sure whether this is great value at the time, but 6'5", 225, that's a college player. That's not a high schooler. And I think there's a lot of projectable traits there. So, big fan of that pick. Yeah. Last one I want to talk about, it's a little bit of a deep cut here. 8th rounder, Thomas Burns out of Texas. Taken 227 here by the Twins. He is someone that I'd heard the name of just coming out of Texas. The only real thing that maybe kept him off the board from going higher is the fact that he's coming out of the bullpen. And coming out of the bullpen in the SEC is a very daunting task. And, his overall stats aren't exactly popping off the page. But 206 collectively ranked, taken at 227. That's pretty good value, I would say. If you can get a guy with a 70 grade pitch in the 8th round, I get that his control is 35. I get that that's ghastly. Doesn't really have a secondary. But 6'3", 240, you build around that tool. There's probably not a ton that you're really looking for from an 8th round pick. 4th year junior. Not going to be signing him for a full slate probably. But again, this is a guy who struck out 17.3 per 9. 43 strikeouts and 22 and a third in the SEC. There's no easy opponents in the SEC. Now, 6.4 walks per 9. Bad. Really bad. Taking a step back from his first year, actually, after transferring from Arizona State, his first year at Texas, out of their bullpen. But strikeout stuff has always been there. Walks have been sort of floating up and down. If you want to look at a positive here, he cut his home runs per 9 a little bit. But, hey, like I said, 70 grade fastball in round 8. I'd take that any day of the week if I'm the Twins. Overall, I just, I think there's 3-4 good picks here. The rest of them are kind of meh. Brett Renfro, I'm not a massive fan of. I've heard a lot of people talk about him as more of a reliever. Comp B in the second round. I'm just not a big fan taking relievers there. I want to see some guys that are going to be starters plus in the second round. It's really only towards the third round, and even then, I'm looking at like a Joey Volchko type of guy where he's got a track record in college and he has good stuff where he's presumptively going to move quickly and end up in the bullpen sooner rather than later. So gets a B for me. Von Lackey, I think, is one of the better picks in this draft. So, take that with a grain of salt. But, yeah, I'll take that. Giants. You can probably see that I'm not a big fan of the Giants picks, specifically 4 and 5, Carlos Martinez, Luke Nixon. Look, I can understand the need to pinch money here. I do. But 335 and 304 taken in the 5th and 4th round, respectively, at picks 118, 150, more than doubling where they were ranked in the group project here. Not even ranked in MLB Pipeline's 250. Especially Carlos Martinez coming from a small school like Hofstra. These two fourth-year university guys, they're clearly cost-saving moves, especially when you're taking a guy like Caden Wechter and Carson Bulleman out of high school with the Comp A in the first round and 29th overall, and your second round pick at 55. They're probably gonna ask for a heavy penny, and I can really understand why you'd want to take a bit of a haircut on those pick value, but you can do so much better with the value there. I really do believe that, and I think both of those are massive reaches. They both get a D for me. Only because they actually are on the top 500, even if I'm not a big fan of the projectability there, but that's a big reason why I have them at a C+, is just using the meat of your top 10 picks on guys that weren't even really you want to yell at people for reaching in the first round all the time, right? But nobody's reaching by more than 150 picks in the first round. That just doesn't happen, right? So, obviously they're trusting their own research and development there and going with some guys that maybe are going to move quickly, end up in the big league roster at some point. But that's just not my big fan of that. But Jackson Flora, I am a big fan of this pick. I think if there is a presumptive fourth best player here, it is Jackson Florida. UC Santa Barbara's ace, guy that I've seen looking at this pick for a long time. I mean, one of the best performers in Division I NCAA. 102 innings pitched with 133 strikeouts. Absolutely insane. 0.3 home runs per 9. 2.8 walks, 11.7 as a starter, starting 16. 1.06 ERA. 12-0, by the way. 70 fastball, 55. Perfect college pitcher. This is a guy that you can move quickly. This is a guy that will be pitching in a very pitcher-friendly environment in San Francisco, and I love this pick for the Giants. I really do. And, I would say it's I'm almost tempted to say my second favorite pick of the draft, if I'm honest. Probably after Grady Emerson, if I'm honest. And, yeah. Look, you didn't fuck it up at the very least with the first pick. So that's not much I can say. Last guy I want to talk about here, Peyton Bonds, nephew of Barry Bonds, not the son, son of his brother, who was, I believe, a minor leaguer for a while there. He's sort of a good bat, good fielder type of guy, but going to a smaller college at Rutgers, and he is someone that I know had, bigger numbers last year in a lot of ways, but, at that size, I have to believe that there's a swing change that can be made to tap into that power more. I don't think a 6'5", 230 guy is 40 power. There's just no chance. Giants will have to work on his swing, maybe get him in the cage with Bryce Eldridge a bit there. And I think it's a good pick at 3. I'm sure his uncle can show him a thing or two here. Big 10 for Rutgers. That's nothing to sniff at, right? And 13 stolen bases, only struck out 21 times in 166 plate appearances. I think that's a very good player right there. And I do not mind taking him at pick 90 here. Solid value, according to all sources. Actually, the group project has that basically as a chalk pick as well. So I think there's some projectability there. I think he can tap into that power a little bit. And, he could be looked at as a great story one of these days and following his uncle's footsteps here. So that's sort of where I'm looking at with that. Next team that I want to talk about here, Pirates. There's nothing to dislike about this draft. I think Derek Curiel at 5 is maybe a little bit of a reach, just based on the overall big board from a lot of these sources. But I think he's a very good player. I think that there's a lot of tools there that make him a competent big league player in the long run. And there's some upside there. SEC player, LSU. Not a whole lot of home run power, but good feel for contact here. Probably his junior year is a bit better than his senior year. A little bit of injury concern there. But, he's a guy that you could probably bat towards the bottom part of your lineup. He'll play good defense for you. This is definitely a pick where the Pirates have the near future rather than the far future in mind here. 60 grade hit, 55 grade field. No power to speak of, but again, a good overall profile. 6'2", 192 at 21, probably filled out as much as he can be. But good feel for hit, can steal you some bases, can take his walks. I like this pick a lot. I don't think there's any reason to complain about it. I think there's probably some higher upside you could have taken here, but there's nothing to sniff at with a competent big league player. Aiden Ruiz. This is the first pick that I really, really like. I would say of the ones that we reviewed so far. I mean, this is a guy that I've seen a lot of people talk about as one of the best fielding players in this entire draft. He's got a good feel for hit as well. Number 9 rated high schooler coming in the second round here. 5'10", 160, kind of a lightweight. Could probably stand to put on some muscle there. Probably not going to hit for a lot of power, but 60 arm, 65 field. He's going to stick at shortstop. He's going to play a good shortstop. He's a switch hitter and a switch thrower, which is interesting. Committed to Vanderbilt. They don't take on lightweights, Look, he's probably not going to hit above like a bottom 3 level in the big leagues, but he's going to play elite defense, right? And that's really what you want in your shortstop position. And you know, right now they obviously have Connor Griffin, who's going to hit, who's going to be great, but there's really no reason why you wouldn't push him to like a third base position where he can play a very good third base if you have an elite defensive shortstop, which Aiden Ruiz could absolutely be. Will he hit enough to get to the big leagues? That is a question, but he's not so inept with the bat that we're talking about him as like a certified bust. And the defense is going to help him move quickly. I like this pick a lot. I think there's a lot of upside here. As a whole, maybe not like a fantasy baseball player, but certainly a big leaguer with a lot of value in real life with his defense. Chris Rembert. This is a guy, right? This is a guy that I like a lot. Really, the only knock you can have with him is the fact that he's playing, a less than desirable position at second. You're not going to be lighting up anywhere with that pick, but coming from the SEC, hitting 343 with 12 stolen bases last year, the bat looks a little, a little like light hitting, decent feel for contact, few steals here, a few steals there, nothing spectacular. But when I look at the total package of Chris Rembert at 51, mind you, 51 overall pick, it's a fourth-year sophomore, by the way, only 20 years old, and freshly minted 21-year-old, I should say. 60 grade hit tool. I just don't think you can really look at a guy like Chris Rembert and not like it a lot. I mean, he can be a fast-moving middle infielder. He can get to the big leagues quickly. 5'11", 209, probably not going to get much bigger, probably not going to add much power. But that's just an overall good ball player with a plus hit tool. And, taking him at 51, I think is more or less chalk if we're looking at the 56 grade here. But that's a good big leaguer. Getting a good big leaguer in the supplemental second round is always a win. Probably going to be under slot as well as a fourth-year sophomore. A lot like Derek Curiel. And it looks like the Pirates, they're just taking big leaguers in this draft. And what I will say about that is I think that's good. I think that's competent. I think the more big leaguers, especially big league bats, you can put in with a clearly outstanding rotation like they have now, Curiel and Rembert are probably going to move pretty quickly. And, you're looking at 2-3 years from now, this is a great team. This is a playoff team. This is a National League Central competing team. And you can't do that without guys like Curiel and Rembert in your lineup. They can't all be superstar sluggers. Some of them just have to be competent big leaguers. And I like that value where they're getting them. I got a B overall because I'm a little whelmed by the rest of the draft. Trey Phelps, good pick, but I just like that second and third selection right there, which is two good ball players. Next up is the Royals. Now, the thing about the Royals, and I think you'll hear pretty much everybody say that Zion Rose is just not the guy at number 6 overall, and it's really hard to disagree with that. 25th ranked collectively, 30th ranked by MLB Pipeline. A solid, well-rounded guy, but his fielding is just like, he's got corner outfielder written all over him, and he just doesn't have the power, maybe, to realize that. It's, if he was more like his 2025 self, and I understand that there's injuries involved there, I could see it. 13 home runs, 31 stolen bases. It's good. I like it. Six home runs, 24 stolen bases this year in the ACC. Definitely his eye and hitting ability took a step forward. More walks than strikeouts. Done that in 2 of his 3 years at Louisville. He's a good player. I like him. Not at 6 though. I think there's better value there. And that gets a D for me. It's probably a little harsh just because I think he's a good all-around ball player. But I think when you have guys like Eric Booth Jr. and Chris Hakopian, even AJ Gracia and Tyler Bell, I think are better players. And, he's just someone that I just don't think the power tool is necessarily it's not. You're basically just drafting a good hitter with good speed, has a good feel for stolen bases, it seems, but it's hard to say in the college level. Yeah, there's a lot to like there, but I still think it's a little underwhelming, in spite of the value. Their first round comp B pick, competitive balance A, Taylor Rabe is someone that I really like a lot, though. There's so much to like with his ability as a pitcher in the SEC. With 11 starts, 76 innings pitched, 105 strikeout, only 1.8 walks per 9. Home runs are a little high, but he's someone that, I will always trust a guy with elite SEC output over just about anybody in the draft. You have 65 fastball, 60 cutter with 60 control and a 55 slider. Obviously you need to get him an out pitch here for lefties. A lot of that stuff moving in on lefties. And if you can spot that well, that's great. If you can tweak that changeup a little bit, I think that's really going to be a phenomenal pick. The Royals, I do trust the Royals with pitchers. This is maybe a little bit against what they've been known for the last few years. They look at guys like Chris Bubich and Noah Cameron, guys with soft fastballs but good control. Well, you have a guy with a great fastball and good control. So let's see what the Royals can do with that. Taylor Rabe, I like him a lot. Next guy that I wanted to talk about for the Royals is actually Camden Johnson here. Down in the 9th round. Now, I will preface this by saying I love the Royals draft outside of their first overall pick. Camden Johnson is someone that I think took a massive tumble down the list. And it's kind of hard to understand why. I think it's maybe just a matter of circumstance. 141 versus 116. That's still a great pick at 269, even if you don't drill into the player here. But you're getting a guy from SEC Oklahoma, right? The national champ, played 65 games for them, stole 31 bases with a 403 on base. Now, not impacting the ball a ton. The swing and miss is a little bit suspect with 70 strikeouts here. I will say this though, this is his only year in the SEC. Transferred over from Wichita State. He's taken a massive step forward in terms of his stealing in-game ability. Shown some in the summer league circuit here with Hutchinson and Ketchwit, should say. He found a little bit more impact this year though. 9 home runs, 48 RBIs, 22 doubles. I think you take this risk every single time, right? 70 grade run. I said this with Thomas Burns, with the Twins. If you can get a 70 grade tool in the 9th round, even if it's run, even if maybe he won't hit enough for it to be worth it, although they say 50 grade hit tool there, the 70 run is you can get into a sort of Jose Caballero-esque role doing stuff like that. Even if he was playing third base and the fielding is just, good, not great. I think there's a place in the big leagues for a guy like that, right? And if you look at a guy like Miguel Garcia, they can take guys that make good contact and they can turn them into a little bit more impactful players. And Camden Johnson, I think, he might see the big leagues just purely based on his speed. And if you can take that in the 9th round, I say that's great value. So he gets an A for me there. And Taylor Rabe is my favorite pick for the Royals, but overall I think they had a very good draft outside of their first pick. It's really the only thing that's preventing them from being an A instead of an A-. But again, I don't dislike Zion Rose as a player. I just think that 6 is a little high for him. But, good for the Royals. A lot of people were ready to write them off after their first selection, and they did great with the rest of it. So, yeah. Orioles. Eric Booth Jr., I think is a great pick at 7. He's someone that is the number 4 high school player in the country. He was taken as the 2nd high school player off the board. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. This is, the number 5 overall prospect according to the group project. And according to MLB Pipeline, he's the number 6 ranked prospect. So a little bit of chalk, getting him at 7. Not too shabby. Very athletic, with great bat speed, easy pop, committed to Vanderbilt. He is just an athlete, really. Like a 70 grade run, 55 hit, 50 power, 55 field, 50 arm. That's a great player. That's a really good player. If his 55 hit tool becomes a reality, and he's able to use that 70 grade, running ability with I think honestly we're looking at maybe a potential, stolen bases leader in the big leagues, and he'll probably hit you 15 home runs to boot, and I think that's a great player to have at the top of your lineup. I think that's a great player that you just want to get on base every single time, and my one worry is, is he a good enough fielder to be a center fielder? If he could be, that's a great center fielder. 6'2", 207, probably finish his development there in terms of his body size, but you never know with these things. I think he's just a great athlete. And, probably paid a pretty penny to get him, but it's not really the kind of guy that the Orioles typically go for. But I think I have to imagine it's best available, and I have to imagine that they're very, very happy with that pick. So, Eric Booth Jr., great pick. Ty Head, another great athlete. This guy maybe a little bit more so than a little bit more of a well-rounded player than maybe Eric Booth, even if Eric Booth has the higher upside. But still, 60 grade, run 55 hit, 60 field is really, really good. 48th ranked in the group project, 68th ranked on MLB Pipeline, taking him in the 2nd round. He'll get on base. He'll steal you some bases. He will play presumably center field with 60 grade fielding. 291, 14 home runs, 26 stolen bases in the ACC, over 1,000 OPS. Good. The thing that I like the most, 57 walks to 23 strikeouts. Not striking out, taking his walks, getting on base, stealing bags, hitting for some pop there. I love this pick. I really do. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, this guy could really be an important part of the next great Orioles team, which I know we were just sort of talking about the upcoming great Orioles team that could have been, but like, there's a lot to like here. And the last Orioles guy that I wanted to talk about here, Kevin Roberts Jr. High schooler, second high schooler they're taking from Mississippi here, outside of Eric Booth Jr. He is a notable talent, 19th ranked high schooler, taken in the 4th round. Now, presumably, look at Vogel, you look at Jimmy Anderson, Zane Adams, Ryan Peach. A lot of those guys are probably taking friendly deals in order for them to get Booth and Roberts here. The hit tool is a question. But he's 6'5", 220 at 17 years old. Committed to Florida, another SEC program. I will always be a fan of that. Just an absolute, like I said, unicorn athlete. If you're a 6'5", 220 with a 60 run, that is a phenomenal athlete. And 88th ranked in the group project, 136th ranked in MLB pipeline, seemed to have dropped him down a little bit, but to take him at 110 with that amount of size, with that running ability, 55 power, 55 field, like, I love this pick. I really love this pick. Maybe I should have... Actually, you know what? I'm talking myself into this here. It's going to be a B+ draft for the Orioles here. Not a big fan of the college players that they did take in sort of the middle of the draft to make this happen. Will Plunkett, another guy that they probably needed to save some money for as a high schooler, but to buy a guy out of his Florida commitment in the 4th round is no joke. That's going to take some heavy lifting, but hit tool's worrying. I won't say that. Like, it's one of those things though where he's just such a physical freak at 6'5", 220, running at 60 grade speed, a 6'4", 7 runner, 3 sport athlete, ran track and field. I mean, what are we doing here? Like, if this guy can just hit like 240, 250, he's probably hitting you 20 home runs. That's probably his number one outcome, right? But who knows? Maybe he can tap into that big frame. Again, 17 years old, guys. 17 years old. Like, and it says here, potential 30-30 center fielder. 4th round pick, I'll take that any day of the week. Like, if I didn't love Booth so much, he'd probably be my favorite pick here. But B+, I think, is more reflective of this part of the draft than it is this part of the draft. But yeah, I mean, the 3 picks that I have graded as an A for the Orioles are like big time A. I'm talking about like Big Apple A here, but yeah, it's a lot to like there. Next up, the Athletics. One of my favorite drafts. I will be very upfront and honest about this. The first 3 picks are the ones I'm going to talk about here. And what I like the most about them. I love Drew Burress, to be clear. I think a lot of people have sort of oscillated with him because of his size. 5'9", probably closer to 5'7". That's what I've heard from people. But you can't deny the level of performance here. Graded as 7 overall. Taken at the 8th pick. He's got 60 power, 60 arm. Everything else is very well rounded. His tools, his makeup, everything. His 3-year body of work in the ACC at Georgia Tech what can you really say about a guy like this other than his height? You can't. 25 home runs in his first year with Georgia Tech. And, like, it didn't really get much better than that, but that's in there, right? That's in there. You know, and even 19 home runs, 10 stolen bases, 16 home runs, 10 stolen bases. More walks than strikeouts in all 3 of his years. Over an 1,100 OPS in all 3 of his years in the ACC for Georgia Tech. I mean, look, at a certain point, you just have to ignore the fact that he's 5'9" and say, clearly he's figured something out here. And I just don't see how it couldn't get better from that in terms of a value prospect for the A's. Next up, I want to talk about Mason Edwards. I said he was my favorite pick for the A's here, and I stand by that. There's a couple reasons for that. USC performer in the Big Ten, right? 95 2/3 with 169 strikeouts. 4.4 walks per 9. Probably could, use some polishing. But as a 20-year-old in the Big Ten, 15.9 strikeouts per 9 over 95 2/3 innings. A 2.07 ERA. Like, that's just bonkers. It's bonkers. And, by the time he probably gets to the A's, they're probably going to be in Las Vegas by then. But his curveball and changeup are carrying him here, right? 6'2", 210. Probably never going to have an elite fastball, but his secondaries are so good that it almost doesn't matter. 50 control, you can do something with that, right? You can make do with that. He just turned 21. Right? I mean, he is... even if you look at it purely from a value perspective, 47th pick, 36 according to Pipeline, 24 according to the group project here. I mean, you take all that stuff out, that's a great value proposition. A guy that a lot of people had as a first-round pick, take him in the second round straight up. Second round at pick 47. But that, you don't get those numbers in the Big Ten without knowing something. And I think you just got to roll with that. I really do. And, you have a guy like Mason Edwards, Gage Jump, Jamie Arnold in the next few years. It's going to be an interesting rotation, if nothing else. It really is. And I think the A's are going to be trending upwards for a while. And, I just don't see how you could really count them out of anything at this point. My next guy that I wanted to talk about is Gabe Geckel. He is someone that I've heard is almost definitely going to be a reliever. I've gone on record as saying, third round is probably where I'm going to take a reliever. Now, Arkansas SEC program, he actually took his lion's share of starts this year. 4.14 ERA, not great, but some interesting numbers here. He's had above 10 strikeouts per 9 throughout his career. He's sort of been expanded in college, not something I really see a lot of. Usually you see people go the other way around, go from starting to relieving rather than relieving to starting. He's still sort of someone that's trying to put it all together here, right? But 87 strikeouts and 71 2/3 in the SEC, certainly nothing to sniff at. Fastball graded at 60, slider graded at 60. Changeup is a 50. He's going to have to improve his control if he wants to be a starter, if there's any hope of him being a starter. But if you look at his best year, it was when he was a reliever, right? And the best year in terms of his, close to being his best for walks, certainly his best for home runs per 9, strikeouts, whip, ERA, all those things, right? So, big fan of this pick. He could be, a guy that moves quickly. He's going to turn 22 in a few days here. An A's bullpen that desperately needs help. And, could be a future closer. You never know. And I think the A's probably want to bring him back into being a reliever and developing him there, which I think is a great idea. I'm definitely sold on this draft overall. Didn't even get to talk about Roman Martin, Alex Hernandez, two guys that a lot of guys really like. So, yeah. The Braves. The Braves are someone that... So the Braves had a very interesting draft here. AJ Garcia, I like him quite a bit. I think it's a solid pick. Again, another one of those that's like, probably won't blow you away, but he's going to be a good baseball player type of guy. In sort of in the mold of Derek Curiel with the Pirates. I can't really fault it. 16th in the group project and 19th according to Baseball Pipeline. So, like, a little bit of a reach, but not so much that, like, if you like him, you'll probably go ahead. You can see here that he was under slot as well by $2.68 million, which allowed them to sign a few other guys later on in the draft process, especially the guy that I want to talk about right now, Jensen Hirschkorn, I should say. This is, as you can see, my favorite pick of the Braves, who I didn't think had a particularly amazing draft, but big fan of this pick. Now, let me break down why. So, high school player that they gave $4 million to in the third round, very much over slot here. You can see the slot for the pick is a little under $1 million. A lot of things to like about him. He is ranked as number 27th in the high school pick, 6'7", 205. 6'7", 205. He is 18 years old, extremely projectable, probably getting some good extension. A 65 fastball, 55 slider, 50 changeup, 55 control. He throws strikes up to 95 and a bullet slider. He is someone that a lot of people seem to be rating very highly. They get him at the 84th pick. He's ranked at 56 and 47 in the group project. If this guy can add a little bit more weight on him, find some durability, really get to that fastball, that 65 fastball there, maybe add a little bit of velo on it. He's an LSU commit, right? Which should tell you what he's worth overall. I think that's exceptional value for that pick, and they paid for it. Let's be clear here. They paid $4 million for a guy in the third round, but if I was going to pay $4 million for a guy in the third round, this is the guy I would do it for. Easy A pick, exceptional. A guy that I think is going to be a quick riser on prospect rankings, especially when he starts really getting to his stuff and maybe dominating some complex / low A players there. Next guy I want to talk about is actually a guy in the 9th round, Parker Brocious. I didn't really think much of this pick until I looked at his stats here. He is out of Georgia Tech, played 4 years with Georgia Tech, including 30 games as a freshman there. And, look, this is a guy that you get a 1363 OPS in the 9th round. Now, 123 plate appearances, you could say, he was used a little bit sparingly. You can look at the trajectory here, though. 1 home run, 2 home runs. 1 home run, and then he gets 13 this year. Now, he lost a little bit on the speed side. He had 42 stolen bases in the summer league there, Northwoods League. But look at this. 13 home runs, a jump of 12 home runs from his junior year, right? 27 walks to 18 strikeouts, an over 500 on-base percentage, and over 1,300 OPS, over 850 slugging. How this guy isn't ranked is absolutely beyond me. 6'1", 200. Like, I just don't really understand like what people aren't liking about this guy. 427 on the group project. They got him at 262. Look, I know that it's not everything to look at the stats in college, but this guy is coming out of Georgia Tech, the ACC, second best division in baseball. Played 4 years at Georgia Tech. He added tons and tons and tons of power compared to where he was as, in his final year. I mean, if I had to look at an up arrow for a guy, this is the guy. Massive up arrow, right? And to get him in the 9th round, I don't know what his future looks like, really, but I'd be shocked if it wasn't as a future big leaguer. You just gotta go out there and prove it. 9th round, probably. A very team-friendly deal there. And, look, I just don't really see what separates this guy from a lot of other players in his mold. 28 hits, 13 of them home runs. That's all I can say, right? Massive, massive step forward. So, what do I know though? I'm a nobody. And then the last team for this part 1 is the Rockies. Now, I am wearing a Rockies jersey right now that should tell you what I think of their draft. I really like the draft. I really like the draft a lot. Tyler Bell, chalk, according to Baseball Pipeline. Slated to go 10th, taken 10th out of Kentucky. And, it's, it's a profile. It's a guy that I like. Sort of an all-around type guy. 50 hit, 50 power, 50 run, 55 arm, 55 field. Just going to be a good player. Switch hitter. Always great to have the platoon advantage in cores. Try to get that ball in the air. 9 home runs, 10 steals. In the SEC, over an 1,100 OPS. I think a lot of people probably look at him as, being taken exactly where he was taken, but I like this pick. I do. He's a solid everyday player type. Be able to play shortstop. It's a little disappointing that the Rockies are going with a fast mover type of guy, because that probably doesn't bode well for Ezekiel Tovar, who was once a top prospect in their organization. But yeah, good pick. Can't really fault it. Going to be a ball player. Don't really know what his ceiling is, but again, sort of in the mold of Gracia and Curiel. Probably make it to the big leagues. Probably be a contributor. Maybe he doesn't have a ton of ceiling, but you can definitely do a lot worse in that position than sort of an everyday type of guy. Daniel Jackson, on the other hand, is a guy that I really want to talk about here. Golden Spikes winner. Look, the Golden Spikes is not always the best indicator of future success. I remember Andrew Benintendi. I remember him being a mega prospect. Didn't really pan out, even though he was a Golden Spikes winner at Arkansas. But I'm always, happy to see accolades for a guy out of the SEC, and for him to have been taken 37th overall when he was mocked to be a first rounder by a lot of places, 23rd Group Project and 28th by MLB Pipeline. 50 hits, 60 power, 50 run, 55 arm, 50 field. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is just an all-around great option here. You know, played at Wofford, and then he transferred to Georgia. Last year was good. 1436, 12 stolen bases, 976. But this year really took that role by the reins. 32 homers, 87 RBIs, 26 stolen bases. 64 strikeouts is maybe a little high, but over 800 slugging at 1276 OPS in the SEC for Georgia as a 21-year-old. I will happily take that with my second pick. I mean, look, this is a guy who doesn't have inordinate amounts of size, but he's just such a well-rounded player with plus all across the board. The only question right now is the swing and miss, and it doesn't seem that awful in context of just doing everything else that he's doing. Making that jump from 14 to 32 home runs, maybe he's found something with his swing that he's really comfortable with, right? Maybe he's just made an adjustment and up arrows everywhere. Daniel Jackson, I think, should have been a first-round pick. I don't really know why he wasn't. I mean, look, he's getting challenged by the best pitchers in the nation in the SEC. He really is. The best amateur pitchers in the nation. 32 home runs, 26 stolen bases, 87 RBIs. Like, that just speaks for itself. Again, take college stats with a grain of salt, but, this probably is my favorite pick of the draft. I mean, it's probably up there with about three of them. And the Nationals have one of them that I'll get to in a second here. But Daniel Jackson, big fan. Logan Redeman, another guy that I really like. Should tell you what I think of the Rockies draft. I'm just talking about their top three guys, and I'm not trying to overcomplicate it here. But, look, it's no secret that the Rockies need pitching. And it's no secret that there's a lot to like about a guy like Redeman. The biggest question is, what is the upside here? So, fourth-year junior out of UCLA. MLB Pipeline has 31, taken 38th. The group project has him at 33, so pretty decent value there. His only year at UCLA after transferring from San Diego, 2.87 ERA and 10 starts, 84 strikeouts and 59 2/3. This is in the Big Ten. Solid division. 1.7 walks per 9, 0.8 home runs per 9, 12.7 strikeouts per 9. Very, very, very good value there. 60 fastball, 50 slider, 55 cutter, 55 changeup, 60 control. So, according to this, he has 4 good to plus pitches with 60 control. What we've seen with the Rockies this year that's worked for them in flashes is just deep pitch mixes. And this is an excellent place to start. Probably needs to bend the curveball, but he could, that's still a 4-pitch mix. Maybe he could learn a sinker there. But he has two planes of movement here. Changeup going to arm side, slider going glove side. 6'2", 185, not all that intimidating. But I think if you're the Rockies, really the question you need right now is pitchability. Pitchability in a deep mix, which I think Logan Redeman is that to a T. There's not many guys that I've seen so far in this draft that has 450 plus pitches with that level of control. Will he be a superstar? Probably not. Will he be a solid everyday pitcher, which is what the Rockies desperately need? I would say it's more likely than not based on what I've seen. But, yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I do want to make a quick mention to Hudson Barrett, out of Oklahoma State. He was their 8th round pick, and he's someone that I like quite a bit. Was at UC Santa Barbara for 3 years. Great program. Wasn't getting a ton of action there, but that's okay. Oklahoma State, Big 12, nothing to sniff at there. 2.58 ERA, 9 starts, 13 innings pitched, 45 and a third, 64 strikeouts, 3 walks per 9, 12.7 strikeouts per 9, 1 home run per 9, limiting those hits 33 and 45 and a third. It's a really interesting profile here. It's another guy that reeks of pitchability. If you look at his freshman year at UC Santa Barbara, 4 starts, 21 games. He had 4.7 walks per 9, but he also had a 12.1 strikeout per 9. So the strikeout stuff is real. 2 excellent pitching programs, Big 12 with Oklahoma State, and then UC Santa Barbara. And UC Santa Barbara is, that's where Jackson Flora went. There's a couple of guys that have come out of that program in recent years and done well on the big league level. So, that seems like a good value for me in the 8th round. I just thought I'd want to mention it, but Daniel Jackson, that's the guy. So, anyway, that's part 1. First 10 picks. Let me know what you think. Just go back over it right now. A for the White Sox, A- for the Rays, B for the Twins, C+ for the Giants, B for the Pirates, A- for the Royals, B+ for the Orioles, A for the Athletics, C for the Braves, A for the Athletics, A for the Rockies. And my favorite pick of the first 10 picks is Daniel Jackson in the comp competitive balance, A round, 37th overall, Daniel Jackson to the Rockies. I think that's incredible value. And, I think my sneaky pick to choose from, I would say, is based on the value of what we're looking at here. It's going to be either Ben Blair, 2nd round for the Rays, or Parker Brocious for the Braves in the 9th round. I think that's more relative to where he's being taken than anything else. Jensen Hirschkorn also is a shout, but unfortunately the Braves get a C for their draft. I just don't particularly like their first 2 picks, but I think it's still a good draft overall. I think that grade might be a little harsh. Might have to revisit that in a little bit. But yeah, let me know how you feel about this video, if this was helpful, informative, anything like that. But until next time, I will say goodbye. Peace.